Okie doke. So, did you bring your thinking helmets? All right, improvise quickly.
What else can you think? Hare Krishna. That's a next. Sorry.
All right, in the ways of thinking, goals and goallessness, and the nature of spiritual progress. Number 1 out of 4 points. Point number 1, goals. We all need goals. For the most part, most people need goals. Goals are sort of like orientations. If you have a goal, you have a direction, a goal towards which to strive. Goals give people inspiration. No goal, usually no inspiration. Hey, dude, wake up. I mean, set yourself some kind of goal. Have a desire to achieve something, to do something. So, what else about goals? Goals help us endure suffering. If there is a light at the end of the tunnel, then we can endure suffering. If there's just suffering, there's no sight of end anywhere coming, then it's very difficult. Becomes very difficult. But if we see the end of it, then we can endure it, like going to school. I just gotta pass this test and the other one, third one, fifth one, and however many there are. And when I'm done with my 500th one, I'll be done. And then the suffering will be over, or whatever it is. If there is end in sight, it's possible to endure suffering. Not only that, but if there is a goal, then the suffering turns into pleasure. For example, after a good fight, the person says, that was a good fight. Isn't it? In other words, you have to, like, any sort of fun. Surfing, when you surf, you have to use your muscles. It doesn't come just, I guess there are some people couch surfing. There's another form of surfing. But for the most part, you have to use your muscles. There's some problems. It's an issue. You have to use these muscles. But because there's some goal to be achieved, you don't mind. Even after so many years of education, there's graduation, you feel great, I've accomplished something, or depends. But some education may be truly just hopeless. But anyways, you get the principle. So the goals will even turn suffering into pleasure. Therefore, we tend to be very much depending on goals. No goals in life, we just crumble. Okay. Now, point number 2. There is something such as eternity. And I remember my first realization of eternity was when I realized that there was wall behind my neighborhood. Beyond my neighborhood. As a kid, I don't know if anyone you remembers that far back, when you were a child, when you for the first time discovered that there was wall around the corner. Certain parameters, certain limitations to where you could go and play, and your parents never let you go beyond that. I remember first time I went to kindergarten. That was, and it was just one block from my house, and for me that was a new discovery. Like, oh, look at there's a wall behind beyond my neighborhood, beyond my immediate neighborhood. And then I thought, there's probably a neighborhood beyond that one. And then whenever you make a step, you can make another step. No matter how much space you measure, there'll still be an inch more to measure. Beyond every inch, there's one more inch to be added. So space, it blew my mind. I was almost became frightened by the realization that there's even such a thing as crude as matter, as space, is actually limitless. There's no limit to it. Then, no one turned the lights outside. Could you turn the lights? It's more inviting. Do you know where to do that? It's just behind. No. It's not that one. It's like that.
Find your shoes like that.
Hmm?
Easier to find your shoes.
Yeah, easy to find your shoes, and it's more inviting people to like. It's more festive. All right, there was a slight diversion. Go back. Here we are. Time. I mean, after each second, there's another second. So this tells you about eternity, about a thing that has no limitation. Okay, so that's point number 2. Point number 3, 2 more to go. Point number 3, spirit is often described as limitless, and spiritual realization is considered limitless. Spiritual life tosses you into a world of infinity, or infinitesimallessness. Just made up their word. So, what's the problem with this? Some people think it's cool. For some other people, this will be a problem. It will generate some sort of a fear. If you remember first several points, I forget how many, 4 or 5, I have written them down here just in case if I forget. They all turn around. Like, okay, let's see, what was the first one? Listen. Goals give orientation. If you're talking in terms of eternity, in terms of no end, but where's the goal? I mean, where does that place you? I mean, towards what am I endeavoring? Where's my goal if it's if it's always somewhere else? You never reach the top. It's like topless. You know, wherever it keeps going up. No goal, no orientation, no inspiration. That's why sometimes materialistic life appears to be more enticing. But please don't forget, materialistic life is also goal-less. It just has a lot of small goals, but they lead nowhere. They philosophically lead nowhere. So that's truly going nowhere. Those goals are really not goals. So. But spiritual realization appears to be so. Like, where am I headed? Where's my orientation? I have no inspiration. And therefore, sometimes materialistic goals appear to be more engaging because I have something very tangible to achieve. I have to finish my education. I have to get a job. I have to fill up my belly. These are all like very measurable goals. Then what else did we have? The suffering. If there's no goals, then how will I endure the sufferings that I may encounter along the way? I have no goal in sight. Then what about suffering turning into pleasure? I mean, if I'm just endeavoring and all these problems come along the way, I don't even know, what's the point, where's the goal, then all this suffering, it just turns to be just suffering, nothing else. And these are some of the fears. These are some of the fears that potential spiritual practitioners can face. And especially those who like really decide to go very, very deep into it. Okay, number 4. The last point. Try to resolve clean up the mess here. Number 4. Number 1, first of all, we should turn around ourselves, observe, to see that nature of our life is limitless. There was not a single situation in your life, that you were ever able to repeat. Every single situation in your life was a totally new situation, with perhaps some similar elements, maybe even very similar, but always different. And as long as you continue to exist, it will always going to be new, 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 and new. I mean, where does this place you? What should this tell us about the nature of reality? That it's actually limitless. Relationships that are not progressive tend to become stale and tend to fall apart. Just like our lives. I mean, if every situation in our life is new, that means we're constantly placed in the position of learning. And this should not freak us out. We should cheer it that, okay, now I've just recognized, a fact about life. It's always changing. It's always placing me in new situations. Therefore, I'm always in the position of learning. So, therefore, we should not fear. We should not fear the topless system. It does not have a top, and that's cool. There's nothing as beautiful as a progressive relationship. How many of you would you like to get stuck in a stale relationship? When the interest in the friend or whatever the other person may be becomes like a super duper over chewed gum. Hard, boring, not interesting. I had a friend, some just came to my mind. I had a friend who he married a girl, and he had this habit of he was a loud eater. In other words, when he would eat, he would make noise, And his girlfriend thought it was quite cute. But after several years of marriage, she just wanted to strangle him every time at breakfast. That's the nature of a stale relationship. Whereas a progressive relationship makes everything always fresh and new and juicy and wonderful. That's the nature of life. It always places us in new situations. So why do we so terribly, almost, what's the English word for clinically? Almost clinically, what's the word? When someone's clinically ill, like repeatedly doing the same thing. Chronically. Psychopath, yeah, that's the word I was looking for, a mighty word. A puncher. That's our, we're sort of like psychopaths, so freaked out due to a sense of vulnerability. Because we have this idea that we're vulnerable. Therefore, we always try to box ourselves in the same position. Figure something out. Get that down, get the formula down, and then just enjoy the sense of safety. But that then grows into staleness, and the same problem arises. But life is a very, very progressive thing. And it's so progressive that you continue to progress always. So whether you want to progress or not, you're forced to. And if you surrender to it, there's no point in what's the word? Not hating, but there's no point in resisting, despising that which is inevitable. Resisting is a good word, thank you. There's no point in resisting that which is inevitable. It's better to surrender to it if it's inevitable. So if one surrenders to this spiritual fact, then the spiritual life becomes very, very attractive. And that vulnerability is born from the psychological understanding that I am a physical body that perhaps has a soul. Because when your physical body, you become awfully too vulnerable. That's why the Vedas teach you're not a physical body that has a soul. You're a soul that has a physical body, and you have it for some time only. So therefore, cast away the artificial fear of vulnerability, and just go for it. Life becomes so much more interesting. You come across spiritual life, let me go to the bottom of it, just to find no bottom. It's topless and bottomless. And it just gets better. It just gets better. I remember first few years of my serious practice of Krishna consciousness, spiritual life. I had this fear that it would drop me. It was just like lifting me so powerful and so fast. I was afraid, my God, this is going to drop me eventually. It was just artificial fear. Because of that fear, I was being in anxiety. Completely artificial. Born from the physical experience of vulnerability. What's up, Johnny? So, the end. It's not the end. Oh, I guess I should have thrown in that the spiritual life does have goals, just like material life. But these are all temporary goals. And then after each goal, there's another goal. And the moment you put yourself limit somewhere, say, oh, that's it. I'm not going past this one. I already traveled way too far away from home. Then that's the end of your journey. And off you go into stillness. So, we need heroes and heroines to march forward. Okay. Questions, comments, additions? Yeah. Tony. Heroine, yeah. Heroine is a female female hero. Even in Spanish you have that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would be some examples of spiritual goals?
Depends. Like, I can speak, of course, from my experience. We all speak from our own experience, of course.
Like maybe an earlier spiritual goal.
Yeah. Well, first one, at one point I realized that I wasn't awfully too of a free person because I had no control over my mind. As a matter of fact, when my mind wanted to smoke a cigarette, I had to struggle with the animal to, not give in. That's the way I perceived it, like a beast that went out of control and was just dragging me all over the creation, wherever it wanted to go, not wherever I wanted to go. So that was the first one, and then so that was a goal. Okay, we need to control this mind. But then how do you go about it? Anyone who tried to do this, to separate oneself from the mind and gain control over the mind, have the mind cooperate with you, we'll see how far we have gone, with this letting the mind out of control. So then, I discovered certain steps, like certain very practical things I could do to get that thing under my control. And then, so those steps became sub-goals, just one example.
So, like, what would a goal be to meditate a certain amount every day?
Correct.
Or like
Yeah,
something
that's
like
a good goal. For example, set yourself a limit. Okay, for 1 month, I'm going to every day. I'm going to, like for me, it was chanting japa. Chanting the mantra on the beads. So a certain number of those mantras I would chant every day. So that's a goal. I would just take a vow, and it was painful. I mean, I have to say it was painful because I had no, my mind was being separated from that which it was attached to. materialism basically, pleasures that were detrimental, like smoking, for example, and many other things which were fortifying materialistic understanding rather than a spiritual one. So mine was being separated from it, and the thing didn't like it, and therefore it suffered, and therefore I suffered. But ultimately it turned into pleasure because I had a goal, and I achieved the goal, and I struggled for it, and I made it, and a few times I didn't make it, but eventually I made it, and then it was, I made it! So that's a good goal.